Movies. You either love them or you hate them. I myself tend to love most movies, even when they are crap. A reviewer close to me said that she would never give 0 stars to a movie because there has been time and effort put into that production. I have now taken this on board and believe that no movie should score less than half a star. And tonight we're going to continue In Defense Of. The last couple of In Defense Ofs, or I do's, have been revolved around video game movies. I know, they're the easiest to do, due to the majority of them being bad. But this week, I'm going to need my Walther PPK, a strong drink shaken not stirred, and a view to a kill. Tonight, I'm going to defend Die Another Day. I'm gonna wake up, yes. Greetings, I'm the Movie Geek, the ultimate movie geek. James Bond is the creation of Ian Fleming and the property of the Broccoli family. He has spanned the last 65 years and has been a massive impact on pop culture, be it the continuation of the books that go from writer to writer, or the movies that have gone through 6 different actors. There's also a number of spin-offs and other such things that won't be discussed here. James Bond Jr., anybody? The number of years and the number of films that came before Die Another Day meant that there was a lot of history to choose from when making this film. I see this film as a kind of homage to the vast history of the character. Released in 2002, Die Another Day marked the film series' 40th anniversary, and as such couldn't pass up the chance to reference every preceding film. The James Bond movies have always gone bigger and bigger, and as such some of the set pieces have become a little unbelievable. I'd argue none of the Brosnan films are as bad as the Moore films. Yeah, I said it. Moore was crap. God rest him. James Bond is in North Korean military base with Colonel Tan Sun Moon, who is illegally trading weapons or African conflict diamonds. Bond is discovered to be Bond, and a quick chase ensues. It's standard of the series that Bond either finishes up a mission in the cold open or is thrust into the fight by an outside source. Either way, Bond usually comes out on top. But Bond is captured. Yes, that's right. Bond is captured and Tan Sun Moon is killed before the opening credits. This is so different. So from the get-go, I feel the audience is in. Then comes the credit sequence, and I have to say Madonna's Die Another Day theme is absolutely atrocious.
Right, stop that! Silly!
There's no other word for it. It doesn't really work, apart from one moment. Time as the title sequence music, Bond is being tortured, and it is superb. Not as good as a Casino Royale torture sequence, but it's a close second. It shows Bond in a position he's never been in before. He is completely helpless, and at the mercy of the North Korean army. He's trapped, he's not charming his way out. It's a different 007 than we've seen in the last 40 years. It shows that maybe the formula is about to change. But unfortunately we had to wait for that bomb to happen in the next film. He spends 14 months locked up and is only released as a prisoner exchange scheme because it looks like he's been spilling some secrets. He knows he didn't spill any of the secrets and that there is a double agent in the British government. He escapes MI6 and discovers Zhao, Tan Sun Moon's second in command in Cuba. He discovers a DNA reconstruction clinic where Zhao is, and finding that African conflict diamonds are being made to look like they belong to British billionaire businessman Gustav Graves, Bond decides to pay Graves a visit. Here, we get a Madonna cameo, and quite a good escalation sword fight between Graves and Bond. Have we met Graves before? Maybe. After the fight, Graves invites Bond to Iceland, to an ice hotel, and the unveiling of the Icarus, an orbiting mirrored satellite that is going to be used for year-round crop development. It turns out the Icarus can also be used as a weapon, so Bond has to stop it. Graves turns out to be Tan Sun Moon, bent on destroying the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. Bond gets the girl, and it's the end of Brosnan's tenure as Bond.
Oh my God, my boy! Oh.
Pierce Brosnan plays Bond in his 4th outing. By this time he has become more and more like Roger Moore, that the series has become quippy and camp once again. But Brosnan at least looks like he's having fun. When you compare Connery and even Craig, you can see that Brosnan most likely didn't want to go. But the audience will pass this over-the-top CGI-fueled movie. It's a shame that it went this way, as GoldenEye, and the way Brosnan played Bond in that film, was his best.
I'm your pint.
Jinx Johnson, or Halle Berry, is the NSA agent tasked with discovering information about Graves and Zhao. She is teed up to be a female equivalent of Bond, and even had a spin-off movie in the works. But due to Die Another Day, that fell through. Her entrance to the film was a copy of the Ursula Andress entrance in Dr. No, but we all know who did it better: Daniel Craig.
Right, stop that! Silly!
Gustav Graves is played by Toby Stephens, and again, he plays it as a sleazy, smarmy git who appears on the front to be almost Bond-like. He even takes the signature Union flag parachute back out of the storage box. John Cleese became Q as Desmond Llewellyn had died in 1999. As had been a standard, the Q interactions were always played for laughs, and getting Cleese involved during The World Is Not Enough meant that it wasn't too hard of a pill to swallow when Llewellyn left the role. The characters of a Bond film are simple. You have the Bond girl, the villain, the main villain henchman, and then the allies, which are usually the Americans. Here, we have Jinx being the Bond girl and ally. Now, the effects for this film are maybe something that lets the whole film down. There is one scene where Bond is riding a wave whilst paragliding after a pretty good car chase on the ice. It looked like the graphics from a Nintendo 64's GoldenEye had been used in the background. At no point did I feel that Bond was in danger. As soon as the movie hits the ice hotel and the film goes downhill. But there are good moments, and despite all this, it is still a Bond film. What do we know about sequels? They have to be bigger. And it did try. It gave us an invisible car, and if you look back at the movie's car history, it's always been going this way. It was nice to see some of the older features being used. Q always says that the standard equipment is added, and yet we don't always see them. They highlight the new stuff, but they never really look back on the old stuff that has been added from film to film. Here we get the ice spikes that was introduced in The Living Daylights, and they are utilised within the Ice Palace. A whole assortment of Bond gadgets are stored in Q's tube hideout, including the jetpack from Thunderball and the poison-tipped toe shoe from Russia with Love. There's also a crocodile disguise from Octopussy. I hate them all films. You get the picture. There are so many references celebrating the good and bad sides of the 40 years of Bond. The conclusion is that Die Another Day is easily the worst of Brosnan films, but you cannot deny that it is quintessentially a Brosnan Bond film. It followed the same structure as his other films, it followed the same style as all the other Bond films, but everything it was could only have been done at that time. No other Bond could have pulled that off, not even more. Brosnan made the role his own by giving him some seriousness that wasn't undermined by the humour. Brosnan may end a film talking about how Christmas only comes once a year, but he doesn't dress up as a clown. I am starting to think that this is just more Bond bashing, but it isn't, honest. I love the Bond films from the 90s, and this is a 90s Bond film. Unfortunately, it was released in 2002, and the world had been changed the year before. From the tragedy of September 11th, we got a whole new way of looking at terrorism and disasters in movies. But it was too late for Die Another Day to change. With the release of The Bourne Identity, which gave us sleek fight scenes, a tight story and more serious characters, it gave the audience something new to look at. This is one of the reasons Daniel Craig and Casino Royale were the way they are. In my opinion, and I am open to comments, the Bond films tried to do this back in the 80s with Timothy Dalton.
Bond, James Bond.
Making Bond a cold-blooded killer, and no time for humour. But the audience wasn't there, and Dalton's contract unfortunately ran out. I would have loved to have seen him in GoldenEye. They were too early with the dark, gritty Bond. Dalton was a great Bond, and arguably influenced Daniel Craig's Bond. Then in 2002, when Brosnan should have maybe ended, they were too late to change, and we got Die Another Day. Looking back, it is still not great, but comparing it to the rest of the Bond series at that point. They were just continuing a tradition and attempting to go bigger. It was light-hearted and had humour.
Now look.
The legacy and future of the Bond series from this, I usually add a bit about legacy and future, but the reaction to this and to the changing world, including the Bourne films, resulted in grittier, harder Bond in Casino Royale. Die Another Day's legacy is that it marked the end of 40 years of James Bond. You could even go forward and say that those James Bond films are of their time and that they are kind of like a time capsule of the history of Bond. Casino Royale acted as a kind of reboot and prequel to the whole series, and we don't know where it's going to go from now on. Hopefully we'll get another 40 years out of them. When we review a movie on the Mad Movie podcast, we either say it's a good James Bond film or a bad James Bond film. So, for the record, and may this be etched into my tombstone, Die Another Day is... Thanks for watching. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Ultimate Movie Geek. Please share and like these videos because that would help me, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will hopefully see you next week with another super in defense of. Thanks for watching.
Right, stop that! Silly!